Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Lauren Maloney, and today I'm going to do a webinar on the cannabis industry and food safety audits. So we're Perry Johnson Registrars Food Safety Inc. out of Troy, Michigan, and we're a third-party certification body that provides food safety audits and certification not only for food manufacturers, but for manufacturers in the cannabis infused and edible product industry. First section I'm going to go through is talking a little bit about food safety. So food producers have the responsibility to grow and to manufacture their food safely, which means implementing the appropriate controls from raw materials to processing, packaging, distributing, and marketing their products. Ensuring that food safety is properly implemented takes a commitment from everyone in the company, from upper management to the production of employees, from the production employees. Regulatory responsibility is that the U.S. government is responsible for setting food safety standards. Meat and poultry fall under USDA, while produce and other manufactured foods fall under the FDA. These regulatory bodies also conduct inspections and enforce the laws that are applicable. Furthermore, food producers must follow any state or local regulations and licensing. Third-party certification is independent of state or federal regulation or inspection. Third-party is a private certification scheme that provides auditing and certification to a recognized set of food safety standards. Many of the food safety standards are based on the FDA's Good Manufacturing Practices and Codex Alimentarius Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points, or HACCP standards. Often larger food manufacturers or food retailers, such as grocery store, require their suppliers to have a third-party certification. This is an additional requirement beyond what is required by the U.S. government. Third-party certification builds on the regulatory requirements, adding additional procedures, processes, and controls to help ensure the food is safe. So now we're going to talk about cannabis products and food safety. Each type of cannabis products have a set of hazards that can cause bodily harm when ingested, inhaled, or applied to the skin. The cannabis industry should be aware of potential contamination from improper growing conditions, handling storage practices, chemical residues on plants and edibles, pathogenic contamination from pests, and improper food handling practices, and the concentration level of cannabinoids. Different type of products have different sets of hazards. Some of the products we'll look at today are cannabis flower, edibles, concentrates, topicals, and tinctures. Cannabis flower is the growing of marijuana flower, or the bud of the plant. And the hazards include the use of prohibited fertilizers and pesticides, or the overuse of approved ones. Organic fertilizer, such as untreated compost or fertilizer made from any animal manure, may also be an increased risk for salmonella or other biological pathogens. Edibles, marijuana edibles, like any other manufactured food products, can have different biological, chemical, and physical hazards depending on the product and the processes in which it's produced. The type of food safety pathogen that will occur in different food products will depend on the process and type of food product. E. coli is often found in undercooked or raw beef, produce, raw milk, and unpasteurized juices and ciders. Listeria can cause serious sickness for pregnant women, newborns, and adults with weakened immune system. It is found in unpasteurized dairy products such as soft cheeses, sliced deli meats, smoked fish, hot dogs, pate, and deli salads. Norovirus spreads from person to person and is often transmitted from unhygienic practices by food handlers. Salmonella is found in raw and undercooked eggs, undercooked poultry and meat, fresh fruits and vegetables, and unpasteurized dairy products. Staphylococcus is found in cooked foods that are held too long at room temperature, such as cooked hams, salads, bakery products, and dairy products. As more marijuana-infused products are produced, potential foodborne pathogens become risks. So marijuana concentrate refers to any product obtained through an extraction process. Most concentrates are extracted using a solvent like butane, CO2, hydrocarbons, propane, or ethanol alcohol. Concentrate manufacture is not just a risk to the consumer, but can also be an extremely risky process for the manufacturer. Clostridium botulinum may be a concern as the spores are found in plant and in soil and can survive past cooking and pasteurization temperatures. Cannabis-infused oils. Cannabis-infused oils can be made from vegetable oils such as coconut or olive oil. It can also be made from glycol or glycerin-based substances. These substances pose a higher risk because it exists in an anaerobic or oxygen-free environment. Cannabis-infused oils is a potentially hazardous food as they must be stored at refrigerated temperatures in order to prevent bacterial growth. Concentrate should be continuously refrigerated before being added to infused products. A cannabis tincture is an herbal solution made with alcohol as the primary extraction solvent. Tinctures are meant to be applied topically or taken orally. Alcohol has a relatively low risk for pathogens, but the flour or concentrate used may not be free of pathogens. This should be taken into consideration. Currently, without marijuana being federally legal, we see different levels of legalization in each state. So we're going to explore the importance of food safety in the cannabis industry. So there's different levels of regulation in each state is very difficult because there's no uniformity throughout the U.S. We are slowly seeing more and more legalization, but without the federal recognition, it's going to take time. And meanwhile, marijuana products are being grown, produced, and consumed. Food safety in the cannabis industry is important because it's not only legal in select states, and is not federally regulated like other food and drugs. Cannabis cultivation and product manufacture is not enforced by the FDA or USDA, and instead the safety of the products are enforced through state-appointed divisions, which can vary by state and even by county. This leads to confusion, lack of understanding, lack of enforcement, and recalls of the marijuana products. For example, in Colorado, the Colorado Health Department regulates medical and recreational cannabis. In California, there are 3 departments. The Department of Food and Agriculture oversees cultivators and processors. The Department of Public Health oversees manufacturers, and the Bureau of Cannabis Control oversees retailers, distributors, and labs. Oregon also has 3 different agencies managing the recreational and medical programs, including the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, Oregon Health Authority, and Oregon Department of Agriculture. Oregonians have complained that this often creates confusion and bureaucratic red tape. The Florida Department of Health Office of Medical Marijuana writes and implements the rules for medical marijuana, oversees the registry, and licenses businesses to cultivate and process the dispense of medical. Nevada has tapped the Department of Taxation to oversee their licensing and regulation of recreational marijuana. And in Michigan, the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, oversees the medical and recreational. So why is food safety important in the cannabis industry? Well, oftentimes immunocompromised individuals are the consumer of medical cannabis edibles. If consumers have a weakened immune system and there is a foodborne pathogen, then they can have a severe reaction to the infection. Cannabis edibles also have a delayed effect. This leads individuals to consume more than necessary in order to get a high, which calls for a better understanding of dosing and the need to ensure proper labeling of THC and other cannabinoids. The product might also contain inappropriate levels of CBD or THC due to the improper testing or labeling. If consumers think they're taking a certain amount, but in fact they're taking a much higher dose, this can be a huge problem. There's been some various cannabis edible recalls. One of the major brands, Dixie Elixirs and Edibles, had in August 2017 voluntarily recalled 6 cannabis products after the Denver Department of Public Health and Environment discovered they are produced with potentially unsafe non-food grade oils. Growing Kitchen recalled Merrymint Tincture, a breath spray product, after a health inspector found it was being stored on a shelf at room temperature. There was concern about whether the oil was shelf stable and the potential botulism risk from the unrefrigerated oils in the product. Another company, At Home Baked, made bubble hash in its cannibal edibles. The recall included a variety of products, including the brownie mixes, blondie mixes, Rice Krispie treats, and stick candy. It seems they were manufacturing their products in a washing machine that was in poor working condition and eroded, rusted, and containing a substantial amount of mold. Unregulated facilities such as old, moldy, rusty washing machines are dangerous and extremely concerning in terms of public health and safety. More than 50 pounds of medical marijuana product, including flower, concentrate, infused patches, and tinctures, were recalled in January of this year from provisioning centers in Detroit, Lansing, Jackson, Kalamazoo, and Ypsilanti for issues such as chemical residue solvents, total yeast and mold, and/or salmonella or E. coli. The majority of the 43 products failing the test were caregiver grown. Michigan officials allowed provisioning centers to sell untested caregiver products due to a shortage, and Michigan's legislators still allowing untested products to go into the market. One of the reasons why food safety and testing is so important is to make sure that these products are not being given to consumers. So now I'll talk about a few different food safety concerns in the cannabis growing and manufacturing areas. Two of the primary types of mycotoxins that are associated with cannabis are aflatoxins and ochratoxins. Improper growing conditions, handling, and storage can result in dangerous risk for consumers. It's important to monitor and record water activity and temperature during storage and transportation of the marijuana flower. During storage, humidity must be monitored in storage rooms twice a day, and meter must be calibrated every month. Pesticides. Medical and recreational marijuana are often contaminated with insecticides, fungicides, rodenticides, and other compounds used to eliminate or prevent infestations. Many of these compounds are the same used by fruit and vegetable farmers. However, some pesticides that are used in the marijuana grow operations are not even labeled for use on food crops. Currently, the states have developed their own pesticide use controls as well as means for making sure those regulations are being followed. Pesticide use on cannabis is not regulated by the EPA and is not recognized as legal by the federal government. Growers often receive no guidance from any service of the agricultural department that's available for fruit and vegetable growers. The approved list of pesticides vary by state and are constantly changing with regulation. Oregon, what's gone back and forth on testing policies since recreational legalization in 2015, applied strict testing to all marijuana in the state after they found pesticides in nearly all marijuana concentrate it sampled from products sold to medical patients. It took Colorado 2 years before state regulators began to sample product. Nearly half of the marijuana tested came back positive for unapproved pesticides. There's been which causes a number of recalls. The city of Denver actually quarantined one grow site after routine fire inspection revealed banned pesticides being used indoors. Banned pesticides on marijuana products have been found in one case at levels 6 times higher than allowed on food products. California didn't even have a pesticide regulation program in place on January 1st, 2018, when it scheduled approved recreational sales. Surprisingly, since then, California had many years of experience with medical marijuana. But in 2017, a California television station collected samples from 15 medical dispensaries and found contamination in 93% of them. As regulation enforcement takes effect, growers, in fear of having their crops recalled, have begun to rein in pesticide use while shifting to more natural organic methods of problem control. In Washington State, where pesticides, even natural ones, must be listed on the label, familiar organic recommended controls, frequently including neem oil and rosemary extract, are starting to appear. But marijuana products can't be labeled organic. The use of the term is regulated by the federal government, which considers marijuana legal. It's possible to grow cannabis in an organic way for everything but the label. Chemical residues. There are no approved pesticides or application limits established for use on cannabis crops by the US EPA. During growing, every facility should follow label instructions for applying fertilizers and pesticides to crops. This includes waiting for a sufficient amount of time before harvesting. When fertilizer is applied, signs must be posted. After cannabis products have been harvested, chemical controls should be in place. All chemicals should be labeled and kept in contained storage areas when not in use to prevent contamination. Only food-grade chemicals should be used during the curing, drying, trimming, and storage. Contamination from water or pests. Water carries risks of pathogenic bacteria like Staphylococcus or Salmonella. For this reason, city water, which is closely controlled in most municipalities, should be used with an annual report and review. Facilities that use well water must test frequently, and water samples should be tested at least every 3 months. Insects, rodents, and other pests spread disease. In order to prevent infestation, a pest control program must be implemented, with traps checked monthly by a qualified contractor and verified by designated employees. It's also necessary to have a building procedure, which includes a monthly inspection with no holes or gaps. No product should leave the facility uncovered to prevent fecal matter and other hazards from coming into contact with the product. Contamination can also occur during storage on pallets, so pallets must be inspected for punctures and packaging material. Contamination from people. Employee training is a key for any cannabis facility. When employees are handling products, the risk of cross-contamination is the highest. Facilities must have good manufacturing practices and personal hygiene policies in place, with training conducted upon hiring and refreshed as needed. Employees must be encouraged to stay home when sick and instructed to wear proper attire, gloves, hairnets, etc., while glass jewelry and outside food must not be allowed in the facility. Tools used during harvesting and other stages may also carry microorganisms if standard cleaning procedures are not in place and implemented correctly by employees. Allergens. Food manufacturers that produce products with one or more of the 8 major food allergens, milk, egg, fish, shellfish, tree nuts, peanuts, wheat, and soybeans, must have an allergen control plan. The control program would include training, ingredient control process to prevent cross-contamination, validated cleaning processes, and label review. Even if your product does not use any of these ingredients, an allergen control program should still be in place so that allergens are not brought into the production area. Recalls due to allergens is one of the most common food safety recalls and can be very deadly. Cannabis packaging. Cannabis packaging regulation is ever-changing. From recreation to medical marijuana, the rules and regulations are extremely specific and strict. It is important to not only make sure you follow all the packaging requirements, such as child-proof and tamper-proof packaging, but it is also important to consider the food safety aspect of packaging and labeling as well. Consideration should be given to type of packaging used. If it's traditionally used for a food product, is the marijuana product contacting the packaging, and if so, are there any risks for chemical contamination? Packaging must be stored properly off the floor and free of dirt and debris. Finally, the labeling of products is extremely important not only to meet state labeling requirements, but to ensure the information is correct and accurate. What logos or symbols can be used. You must know what logos and symbols can be used on the labels and what warnings must be printed. It's also important to label any potential allergens so consumers can be informed, especially when you can't tell by looking at the product. The importance of testing. Testing of marijuana flower concentrate and marijuana products is extremely important, not just for potency, but for chemical residues, microorganisms, pathogens, pesticides should also be included in those tests. Although not required in every state, 17065 accreditation labs should be used when possible. So now I'll talk a little bit about cannabis audits and what they entail. So there's different types of food safety audits for the cannabis industry. There's the Cannabis Good Manufacturing Practice Audit, or GMP, a Cannabis Good Agricultural Practice Audit, GAP, a HACCP and GMP combined audit, or a GFSI benchmark food safety audit. Cannabis GMP audit would be applicable to the marijuana or hemp grow operations. This would be based off of the USDA's good agricultural practices, as well as the state-specific requirements. A cannabis GMP audit would be for cannabis product manufacturers. So that's manufacturers who make edible products, concentrates, tinctures, topicals, and all other manufactured products. The requirements are based off the federal government's 21 CFR 117 good manufacturing practices, as well as a state-specific requirement. A cannabis GMP and HACCP audit would include not only the GMP 21 CFR 117 good manufacturing practices, but as well as hazard analysis and critical control points, or HACCP requirements, and then the additional state-specific requirements. So GFSI and Cannabis. GFSI is Global Food Safety Initiative. They have benchmarked a few different schemes for their food safety audits. SQF, or Safe Quality Food, allows audits for the cannabis edibles for Canada only. This is because Canada recognizes recreational marijuana throughout the entire country. SQF is not allowing certification to cannabis products in the US until it becomes federally recognized. BRC, or British Retail Consortium, allows cannabis as long as they are food products. So they don't allow smokable, vaping, or topical products to be included in their scope, but you could include edibles, edible products. FSSC and Global Gap do not recognize cannabis in their scope. However, Global Gap, which is for the growing of products, is now recognized hemp. So you can be certified for Global Gap if you're growing hemp, or a product that has very, very low THC levels that wouldn't be considered a drug. So if a cannabis producer is interested in certification, the steps would include to fill out a client questionnaire. This is how we gain information about the facility or the grow operation. Out of this information, we can generate a quote for the company. And if the client accepts, then we would schedule the audit. Audits typically last around 1.5 to 2 days, but would vary depending on the producer's scope, what they're having certified, and how large they are. After the audit, the producer submits corrective action for any nonconformities found during the audit within 30 days, and then we would issue a certificate that would be good for 1 year. So what are the benefits of certification in the cannabis industry? Well, certification can help promote your products with an added layer of confidence that you're producing a safe food or a safe cannabis product. It also helps to gain public and shareholder trust. When a company produces a product and has to issue a recall, it often has a very negative effect on the public outlook of that producer, and it may even cause the company to close if the recall is large enough. So you want to be able to reduce recalls and save money, which is also another benefit of certification. So this concludes the presentation for cannabis in the food industry. If you have any questions, you can write them into the box. I'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, if you would like more information or have any questions, you can contact us, me at any time by email or phone, and be happy to go over any questions that you have. Okay, well, it looks like we don't have any questions for today. So again, I want to thank you for attending the webinar, and I hope that you have a great afternoon. Thanks, bye.